name is Nicole, and today I have for you my favorite books of 2016. So I really like being able to have the books to like hold up and show off and have like something physical to like use as a prop during these videos, but while collecting the books for this video I realized I have less than half of them here. The rest are all in my dorm room because they're my favorite books and I keep all my favorite books that I want to have with me at all times in my dorm room, which seems kind of ironic now because I need the, like, one time I need them, they're not here. It's fine. So I tried to narrow this down to top 10, but I couldn't. I did my best and I failed. So this is my top 12 books of 2016. So the first one is The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth, and this one is about a girl who is discovering her sexuality in a small town in the 90s. Once her family finds out that she's gay, they send her to a conversion camp. And I just feel like this is a really honest and emotional story about sexuality and finding who you are and learning to love yourself. And this is one of those books that I can definitely see why it's kind of considered a classic in queer YA. It's so good, so beautifully written. It touches on a really difficult subject, which is the conversion camps, and I think it does it really, really well. Number 2, and I say number 2, these are not in any particular order, and that is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I have always loved Cassandra Clare's writing, and this one is no different. Honestly, it was almost a toss-up between Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy and Lady Midnight. I just loved the introduction into this new story and these characters, Emma and Julian and the entire Blackthorn family. I just fell in love with them. They're all so wonderful, and I honestly would love to just be a part of that family and hang out with all of them. The new storylines for this series are really interesting and different, and the fact that our protagonist is now someone who's been in the Shadow World her entire life as opposed to Tessa and Clary, who we got to see introduced to the Shadow World, it makes it so much cooler and it adds this whole new element to the story because we have someone who's experienced and badass. Next, I have all of the All for the Game series by Nora Sakavic. I didn't want to pick a favorite book in the series, so it's just the entire series. This series is probably, out of all of these books, the one that has just like constantly stayed with me. I read it in the spring, and honestly, I can't stop thinking about these characters. It's been several months and still, like, every single day these characters are on my mind and I'm thinking about what they're doing and what they're like saying and how they're hanging out with each other, and just they're so compelling and so interesting. And part of the reason I can't stop thinking about them maybe because like half the blogs I follow on Tumblr blog about the Foxhole Court, but I love it so much. This series is about a teenage boy named Neil Jostin who plays this fictional sport called Eggsy, and he gets recruited by this college team at the Palmetto State Foxes, and the Foxes are kind of a found family type thing. All the players are people who needed second or third or fourth chances, and so it's this kind of eclectic group of misfits who grow to like consider each other family, and it's like really sweet and like, but it's also like super angsty and like dramatic, and there's all this like mob stuff going on, and it gets really violent, and it's really good. It's a really good series. It's kind of intense, but like really good. Next, I have The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the finale to one of my all-time favorite series, The Raven Cycle, and it was such a good finale. I cried and I laughed and I tabbed the hell out of my copy. Pretty much everything that I wanted to happen in this book happened, and so much more. The Raven Cycle series is about a girl named Blue Sargent who lives in a house full of psychics, and she herself is not psychic, but she does work as kind of an amplifier for psychic power. And one day she sees a kind of ghostly figure of this boy, and her mom tells her that that means that he is someone who's going to die this year, and her seeing him means that he's either her soulmate and or she's going to kill him. And then the next day she sees the boy in real life, and she gets caught up in his kind of crazy quest to find this dead Welsh king, and it gets really complicated from then on, but it's so good. And it has this really cool sort of quirky magic in it. All the characters are fascinating. And like I said, it's one of my favorite series. Maggie Stiefvater's writing is absolutely stunning. By far, probably some of the most beautiful writing on this list. So I highly recommend it. And like I said, the finale was just so good. Then I have This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab, and I know I just said Maggie Steve Alder's writing may be some of the most beautiful on this list, but like, I'm just realizing now that I may have lied. Victoria Schwab's is up there. It's so good. And one of the things that Victoria Schwab does so well is her world building is so incredible. The concept is that it's this world where violent acts create monsters, and different kinds of acts create different kinds of monsters. So a non-lethal violent act creates one kind of monster, a murder creates another, and a mass tragedy, like a mass murder, creates a whole other kind of monster. And it's about a monster boy who doesn't want to be a monster, he just wants to be human, and a human girl who wants to impress her, like, mob boss father by being monstrous. And they sort of meet in the middle and become friends. And it's so well done and so interesting and compelling. And it's a story that has some really cool plot elements, but it's not necessarily plot driven. It's more driven by this concept, and it's like world driven. I don't know how to explain it. It's just really, really cool, and pretty much everything Victoria Schwab has ever written is absolutely beautiful. She's another author who's published multiple books this year that I would have loved to put on this list, but I tried to limit myself to just one book per author. But she's one of my all-time favorite authors, and so you should definitely pick up This Savage Song because it's amazing. And then for something completely different, P.S. I Like You by Casey West. This is a contemporary romance. Casey West is wonderful. This is a contemporary romance about a girl who is writing her favorite song lyrics from a kind of obscure band on her desk one day, and the next day she comes back to find that someone has responded. So they start up this sort of relationship through writing to each other on this desk and leaving notes in the desk, and of course they fall for each other. Casey West's books are one of those things that they bring me so much joy because they're just so fluffy and pure and a little bit cheesy, just the right amount of cheesy, and you can't help but smile and giggle while reading them because they're just so fluffy and adorable, and yeah, maybe they're a little predictable, but they're just so much fun, and they're the kind of book that you just know when you pick one up you're gonna have a good time and it's gonna cheer you up. And this one is, I think, her best book so far. And now for finally a book that I actually have with me, Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the sequel to Six of Crows and the final book in the Six of Crows duology, and it is so good. I mean, this is another series finale that is just so well done. It made me so emotional. Again, literal tears. These characters are all so good and so interesting, and you can't help but love each and every one of them. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I definitely have my favorites, Cough Cough, Wylan, Inez, and Kaz, but all of them are just wonderful. They're not good people, necessarily, but they're wonderful characters. I feel like one of the best things about the writing in this book is that it's just so clever. I mean, this book and its prequel are kind of a high fantasy heist novel, and one of the main characters, Kaz, is this brilliant, like, kind of trickster kind of guy, and he's just so smart and constantly on it, and the way he's written is so clever and so well done, and I honestly applaud Leigh Bardugo because she may have had significantly more time to come up with Kaz's quips and all his crazy plots than Kaz actually did, but still, even with all the time in the world, it's still some pretty damn impressive scheming. Then I have The Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace, and this is a book of poetry, and it is honestly just so beautiful. It's that sort of short, modern, free-form kind of writing that I really love. It's very personal, very raw, very emotional. Amanda Lovelace described it on Twitter as a sort of anti-love story, and I feel like it's sort of a love letter to yourself kind of thing. It talks a lot about realizing that, like, you don't need anyone else. Like, having other people around is good, but, like, you can save yourself, and that's amazing, and, like, you're amazing and you can do anything yourself, and, like, you don't need a romantic partner to save you, which is a message that I very much appreciate and very, very much love. I mean, the writing is so beautiful that I knew by the time I read the dedication that I would love this book. Then I have The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, and this is probably one of the most unique books I have on this list. The structure is this really cool, kind of weird switches between our two main protagonists, but then in between their chapters, there's sort of little snippets of other things, and sometimes these are a sort of poetic definition of a word that connects to the storyline. Sometimes it's a glimpse into some of the characters' pasts. Sometimes it's a anecdote from just some other random character that they pass on the street. Like one of these little random, like, in between chapters is about a security guard that they pass. And it's just really, really different and interesting. And I feel like it's one of those reminders that the world exists beyond our experience of it, that everyone we pass on the street has their own story and their own struggles and their own lives that we know nothing about. And I feel like that fits in really well with the general themes of this book. It's about a girl whose family is about to be deported, and she is in the city trying to figure out what she can do to stop it, and she meets this guy who's also from a family of immigrants, and they kind of fall for each other and end up spending the day together, and you get to see the way that they affect each other and the way that they affect people around them in ways that you would never even guess. Then I have A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas, and I know that there's been a lot of Sarah J Maas related discourse recently, and I recognize that there are a number of elements of her books that could be improved. Cough cough, diversity. Still really like her books, even though I recognize that they are in some ways problematic. In particular, I just really love her A Court of Ferns and Roses series, and I thought the update we got with A Court of Mist and Fury was so interesting. This is another one where the characters are just fascinating and complex, interesting people that I just want to read more and more and more about. Rhysand in particular is just bae, and pretty much his entire like group of friends at the Night Court is so interesting and wonderful. And I just feel like Sarah J Maas's books are always very adventurous and are a really good escape from reality. Then I have Hammer of Thor by Rick Riordan, and this is another one where I really struggled to choose which of this author's books to put on the list. Hammer of Thor or Hidden Oracle, both of which I really, really loved. But I decided on Hammer of Thor, and that's primarily because of Alex Fierro, who is a new character who's introduced in this book. This series in general is about a boy who dies and then wakes up in Valhalla, and he discovers that his father is a Norse god. And this is the second book in a series. Alex Fierro is a new character in this book, and she is a gender fluid child of Loki, and she is awesome and super badass. And this series just has such incredible diversity. I mean, just to name a few, we have Alex, who, like I said, is gender fluid. There's a Muslim Valkyrie and a deaf dwarf. I feel like Rick Riordan has been making such a really good effort recently to include diversity in his books, and I so appreciate that, especially because he's a middle grade author, and so I think any diversity aimed towards younger kids is phenomenal. Next is Learning to Swear in America by Katie Kennedy, and this is one that I honestly genuinely did not expect to make this list, but it totally took me by surprise while reading it. This is about a Russian teenager who is a science and math genius, and he has to go to America because there is a asteroid, meteor, I don't remember which, hurtling towards Earth, and they're trying to figure out how to stop it to save the world. So he has to team up with some of the most brilliant minds in the world to try and stop this meteor or asteroid from hitting Earth. And while he's in America, he meets a couple of other American teenagers who try and sort of teach him how to be a normal teenager, since he's led a very sheltered life, just, you know, being a genius. I just found this book really charming. The characters were interesting and funny and genuine. The plot was compelling, and the general theme of this kid learning how to just relax and be a normal teenager while he's also simultaneously trying to save the world was just really interesting and funny and I just really enjoyed it. Then the last book I have on this list is Heartless by Marissa Meyer, and I barely finished this one in time to include it in this video, but I absolutely loved it. Marissa Meyer's writing is so good, and I love me a good both villain origin story and fairy tale retelling. This is a origin story for the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, and it's absolutely incredible to watch this sweet girl, Kath, who just wants to be a baker, and she doesn't want to marry the king or be queen or like rule a kingdom or do any of the like political stuff that her parents want her to do. She just wants to like hang out with her best friend and bake and open a bakery and like eat sweet food and just be happy. But her parents really want her to marry the king, and so that's kind of what she has to do. But one day she meets Jest, who is the new court jester, and he kind of sweeps her off her feet and they start falling for each other. And it's so good! Jest is dreamy. I mean, the entire world is kind of dreamy because it's Alice in Wonderland, so it's sort of wavy and like whimsical and fun. And this is one of those books that I feel like the characters just like grabbed me and wouldn't let go. They're so interesting and heart-wrenching and just beautiful, and I love Marissa Meyer's writing. I always have, and pretty sure I always will. So those are my top 12 books of 2016. Let me know what you guys thought of any of these books in the comments. What were some of your favorite books that you read this year? Let me know. I love you, and I'll see you later. Bye!